So, okay, we are here. We are taking the next logical step after our reflections, and we're thinking about the next year. And we're seeing the future, right? That's sort of that's the point. We have the foresight. We have the that Paul Atreides patience. We have all of it, man. If anyone is familiar with the Sun Eater book series, we got that little sight from the quiet. We got all this stuff going on. That's what we're here to do today. Talk about goals, talk about goal setting in general, how to actually, you know, I think I said this on Instagram the other day, and this is like, I think as humans, we're really good at setting goals, but we're really bad at following through and achieving those goals and like maintaining that thing and building momentum over time, right? It's really tough. So hopefully, through this discussion, we can have some helpful things for everybody and even for ourselves as we kind of reaffirm some stuff as we talk about it and um, really do the best thing that we can do as individuals to set ourselves up for success, because everyone's going to be a little bit different. So we'll kind of hit some different categories of goals, and logically, of course, as you do here at the training arc, we're going to talk about training first, because like, what's more important than lifting weights? Nothing.
Nothing. End podcast.
I mean, yeah. I mean, okay. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thus concludes season 1.
Go get it in 2025. Just train. LOL.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I can kick us off with training, because I think for me it's relatively simple. And this feels so funny to say, because like this past October, November was like my 10-year anniversary of training. Pretty consistently, pretty well thought out. And by that I mean, like, I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know exactly what I was doing. It wasn't optimal by any means, right? But it was at least some thought went into it. I wasn't just kind of floundering around doing. So it's funny to say this, but this beginning right now after the contest season, like, this is my first ever proper bodybuilding off season. I've never done this before. My initial, when I first got into lifting, it was like bodybuilding style training, but I was dieting the entire time. I was always in a deficit, and my training wasn't great, and my nutrition wasn't great either. Like, protein was low, all this kind of stuff. So like, that wasn't great. And then any weight gain phases after that was always when I was powerlifting. And then I hurt my back, so I couldn't powerlift for a second. Tried this bodybuilding thing, attempted the contest prep in 2020, didn't work out because of pandemic. And then I was like, okay, well, off season. But I had so much going on, external and internal obstacles that kind of made my consistency and adherence very, very bad. And, so that just wasn't a productive period of time. But now we're here, and like, this is my chance to do this off-season thing for the first time, which is crazy and exciting and all that. So that's the goal, as simply as I can put it, is just maximize bodybuilding off-season. Like, make sure that we are slow and steady, but consistently gaining weight. I'm sure we'll do like a quick diet here and there or whatever if we need to clean up some of the body fat gain, but make sure that it's at an appropriate rate, but that we are moving forward with body weight stuff. It's a big goal for me to stay leaner than I have in the past, because I just don't, on stage at 160, I don't need to weigh 205. That's just a little extra, but I do want to make sure that we're moving forward and we're making adjustments to the nutrition if it's not over long periods of time, and make sure that training is just, honestly, man, like just train really hard. Like, like, do it, basically have my training in a place where it's just barely sustainable. Like, we're really pushing it, just have fun, get in there, tear the house down, get super close to failure all the time, go to failure on some stuff, like whatever, right? Worst thing that can happen is you build up more fatigue, you got to deload early, whatever, have it even feel a little bit unsustainable sometimes. That's sort of the goal of, like, let's just hammer volume, hammer intensity, and just have a great time. And then on top of that, making sure that I'm then getting into some of those little variables that start to stack up and matter a little bit once all the basics are in place. So like all the stuff that we always talk about, like, doesn't matter very much, especially if it's going to sabotage more important things like nutrient timing and creatine and like all these little things. But now I'm like, let me do those, right? Like I have such a good momentum, good consistent training practice now compared to what it was, during that last period where it was super inconsistent a few years ago, that now those things can actually matter a little bit for me. I haven't taken creatine, and so it's probably been more than 5 years since I've taken creatine. So I'm like, let's do that, right? Let's start paying attention to some of these tiny little things that on their own don't do much, but when you have 5 or 6 of them, now it's a little bit of a chunk, right? So, and then just sleep as much as you can, do a little bit better job with my sleep, because that was the thing. That's always the thing that suffers, right? Because I need more time in the day, so I'll just sleep a little bit less. But I want to make sure that I do a little bit better job of that, because that will certainly help with the training stuff and all the adaptations. And some of that research into sleep deprivation is not very nice with what happens with body composition and training adaptations and all that kind of stuff. So that's sort of the big thing, right? Is that's what the training goal is. I want to do it because I just want to do it, right? Like that's my reason why that stuff is like, it's dude, competing this year has like, it just makes me feel different, man. Like I feel like it's solidified bodybuilding is not, certainly far from my whole identity, but like a part of my identity, not necessarily like of the getting on stage, competing, whatever, but just like, this is just a thing. Like, this is me, right? This is a big part of me, and paying attention to all the little stuff and not just doing the bare minimum. And of course, there's going to be short periods of time where you have to do that because you're just too busy with data collection or whatever. But the vast majority of the time, like, I want that to just be such a fun, enriching, satisfying, fulfilling part of my day to day. Like right now, I'm spending like hour and a half, 2 hours in the gym just lifting, right? And it feels great. It's fun. So that's kind of the big thing, man. I just want to lean into it, keep having fun, and really try to maximize what I can do. Because as we'll kind of talk about with some other goals around like work and stuff like that, like, the better your physique looks, I think the unfortunate reality of the current landscape of how the industry is just the better work stuff goes also, right? So that's kind of nice as well. And then how do we make sure that this stuff happens? How do I keep myself accountable? How do I do all that? Well, still have coaching, right? So that helps a ton. And then otherwise, like, I think the biggest thing is just making sure that we keep it fun, right? Like if something needs to change because it's feeling super stale, super kind of boring, like sometimes stuff just gets really monotonous and boring, right? Like that just, with hypertrophy training, that happens all the time. And so like, just don't bash my head against the wall a million times, like just change something. There's so many, we haven't even talked about like research a ton on this podcast yet, but like, and we will, I'm sure, before long. But one of the cool things about all the hypertrophy research is like so many things work, right? So like you have so many tools in your toolbox that you can pull out and say like, oh, well, this thing is boring. Well, let me do this, right? And you just get that little fresh something that keeps things feeling really fun, and that's what feeds back into all this. So I think that this will require the least amount of like creating systems and creating the environment to help me be successful, because it's just something that is fun and I look forward to it, and it's great. I think the only other thing that I need to be aware of is not filling my plate up too much with other things, because once the time constraints start to really get in there, then it's, training's not necessary, right? Like that's the thing that I always convince myself of, is like the work is necessary, right? Right.
I'm gonna interrupt. You say training's not necessary? How could you?
I know,
I'm just kidding.
but that's the thing too, right?
It's really not though. Yeah.
It's not, but it sort of is. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
when your training is how you want it to be, you feel like, we feel so much better. It feeds everything else in your life, and I'm sure you can relate. Like when your training starts to suffer because you're just too busy, you got too much other stuff going on, or you're like, if you're like me, you're trying to work between sets, and like you're just distracted. It doesn't feel good. It feels like part of you is kind of missing. It's just there's like this weird, doesn't feel right. So
And training just gives structure to everything else too, like you
yeah,
said, right? Not to interrupt, but I think it's just I find the same thing where it's okay. I love training. It makes such a big difference for me, especially if I do it early in the day. I'm just going to set the day for a really good time. So even if that looks so different where I can only get a 30-minute session in, sometimes that's a fantastic session because I'm so much more intentional. And
yeah,
I still get that boost. I tick so many boxes and I just create that momentum moving forward. So it's like you said, it might be a little bit different and it might not be necessary, but in some ways it can just be so helpful to stack those habits and just it be enjoyable.
100%, 100%. So that's my training goal, man. Is just maximize bodybuilding off season, have fun, train really hard, recover hard, eat good. That's basically it, you know.
It's
Yeah,
that's really exciting though, because like you said, it is simple, but simplicity is really nice, especially
yeah,
when everything else is complex
yeah.
in
Dude, the
life.
more simple we can keep stuff, the better, I think,
Yeah,
right?
because if it's
You know,
simple, you're more likely to do it and do it consistently. And as we know, like that's
yeah,
where the gains come, right? Just
yeah.
consistency and time. So it's making it simple where you don't just have to think too much, right? You're
Mhm.
focusing on just going and training hard, like you said. I loved how you're like, man, I'm going to go close to failure and even to failure, and just go
Yeah,
at it. It's just like that.
fun.
Maybe I don't want to say like old school mentality, but kind of is where they just really enjoyed it. They're in the
Dude,
gym, Arnold and the homies just getting together and getting the pump,
yeah,
and it's like bringing it back to that is so nice because I think I don't know if you felt the same way, but there are times, and maybe more so on social media too, where it's we get so engrossed into the science of stuff that we're just
yeah.
overthinking and we kind of forget some of the other things.
1,000. I was just gonna say that. So that's such a big benefit to me of being of Ryan Dorst being my coach is that he knows the science, he knows what's up, but he came up as an old school bodybuilder, right? So he knows there's a sweet spot of how much of this science stuff we need to, you know, be dealing with on a day to day basis. And I've learned so much from like, dude, my training is like it's. I've had periods of time where I'm basically doing a bro split, or like you just do just an amount of volume or going close or all the way to failure on an amount of stuff that the science, well, at least up until recently, would have been like, no, that's not necessary. You know, it's just extra fatigue for no reason. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, just dude, like we overthink this so much, and now the research is starting to catch up where it's like, okay, more volume seems to be better, closer to failure seems to be better, right? A lot of this stuff, like just you know, like it absolutely is more complex than just train really hard. But if your North Star is train really hard, like you're not, as long as you're still recovering, right? Like you're not going to be steered too wrong. And I think so much of, one of the things Ryan said to me really early on, he looked at, it was right when we started working together, right? And I sent him like some of my training logs that I'd been doing on my own, and just to kind of give him an idea of where I was at so that he'd know, a starting point. And he was like, "Oh, you just don't train enough." Right? Like he literally just said that. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So lo and behold, the results are better, right? If you just, so it was that, and it was also, this was especially when I was powerlifting. I would get very in my head about RPEs and all that kind of stuff, and he was just like, "Dude, like you just need a little bit more brute. Like just quit thinking." And that's when he started to be like, "I'm just going to tell you what weight to do. There's no RPEs, right? Then you tell me what it felt like, but just do 3 reps at this weight." And that helped so much just to get out of my way, stop overthinking it, and just work hard. So yeah, long ramble to agree with what you said, but
Yeah.
yes.
It's that's why I also laughed when you said you're like, we haven't actually talked much about science on this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, kind of for a good reason in a way. It's not that we
Yeah.
don't want to, or it's not that we don't feel like it's useful. I mean, we're doing PhD stuff and
Right.
we are researchers, but it's one of those things where it is a spectrum too, right? Where you can both wherever you want to lie on being evidence based versus super quote unquote bro, old school, whatever it is. Everyone can learn from everyone on that spectrum, right? Like you said, we're learning a lot from that old school mentality of just train hard, but maybe they could also learn a little bit from the scientific method about having a bit more of just structure or approach or continuity, whatever it is, right? Just
Yeah.
there's so much we can learn from everyone, but it all just comes down to training. So I think it's cool that we're kind of saying these things. I think it's important that we say those things and also live that because it's you know, there's so many ways that we can get to the end goal when it comes down to it. And we just got to love the training. That's the most important part. And train hard. It's like, as long as you can tick those 2 boxes, give some time, you'll be all right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
it's cool to hear you say that, and to be looking forward to this next block, because it's going to be so good. Because as you said too, right? It's year 10 of training, but I'm sure like you continually just learn more and more every single year, even though it's been 10 years, and it's probably going to be even more so after the years go on and on. That's the funnest and most cool part about the bodybuilding journey, is you really don't stop learning. Right. And it's not just that we learn theory, we learn stuff through the science and all that, but we also learn the application and how different those two things can be and how useful they can be for each other. So it's cool to see that and to know that, okay, now you're going into your first 10 years into training, you're going into your first actual off season, but with all this knowledge, with all this experience, with all this practical, practicality. And that's going to be, it's going to be so like fruitful in the end. You're going to get so much, not just the bicep gains, but it's the mental gains, the confidence, all of that. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I think about, sort of what you're getting at there too, is a lot of people have this, well, how much progress are you really going to make? You've been training that long, and you think about, dude, even people who've been doing things very specifically for bodybuilding for a long time. I think obviously, is this the norm? No. But you think about guys like Steve Hall, Alberto Nunez, like they're this deep in their training career, and look at the transformation these guys have had over these last couple of years. They look like different people, right? And like Berto posted something the other day of his back. I think it was on his story or something. And it was like, you look like an IFBB pro. This is unreal.
Wait, that was his back? I thought it was his bar and door. That was huge.
But yeah, so it's like, sometimes we way overthink stuff. Sometimes we underestimate what we can do. What's the saying? We overestimate what we can do in a short period of time, but underestimate what we can do in a long period of time. I think that's so true. Man, there's, I don't know. And I think about like just the greater understanding I have of like mind muscle connection stuff. Does that matter a ton? Probably not, right? Does it matter a little bit? Maybe. And it certainly helps me, like my quality set to set is so much better than it would have been 8 years ago. My ability to listen to my body and know how I'm recovering so much better than, so like you learn so much that the quality can improve a ton. And so I'm optimistic that I'm kind of triangulating very well to where I have all those qualitative things that are going to be great. And I still get some of the, not newbie gains, but like, fresh bodybuilder off season kind of gains. So we'll see. I don't know, but I'm hoping that the stars align and I can have a nice little boost of progress here. But even if not, like it's still going to be fun, right? At the end of the day,
and you'll still get something out of it, right? And that'll still skills, knowledge, excitement, momentum. There's so much things you'll still get from it that'll only just help you go forward. And that's kind of something we always bring up and talk about, right? Like regardless of the outcome, you're going to come out with something positive. That's it, right? You maybe didn't meet the specific goal you set out to do, but that's okay. It's not a failure. You just now are better equipped for the next time you go around it, and you have a better chance of success then. Will you get it then? Maybe. You don't really know, but this every time we're getting closer and closer to that being the thing. And when it happens, it'll be just so worth it. So
for sure.
That's sure. I'm excited. But yeah, so for my training stuff, I gotta compete this year, man. I'm competing this year. It's crazy to say, and I got little butterflies. I talked about butterflies again last couple episodes, but this is the nervous ones. So the ones where I'm like, damn, it's actually real. But it's also very exciting, right? Because I think it's someone else has said this, and I'm gonna steal the words, but it's like blissfully ignorant about what's to come.
Yeah.
Where it's like the season. It's like, yeah, first season, it's gonna be, I have the theory and practice to understand like what's going to happen, but I've never actually been through it. So it might be a nice little smack in the face in a good way. But that's also exciting in itself. So I think I'm very excited to just embark on that journey of growth, to be a student in general, but specifically a student of the game of bodybuilding, because that's something I've always wanted to do, right? But I wanted to also respect the game and make sure it was the quote unquote right time, and that in itself, because there's never a right time. But I think to some degree there can be. And this is the time right now. There's no real excuse, so that's why I'm also kind of getting hit in the face, and yeah, like you got to do it. So I think, yeah, I'm just very excited for that. I think just the idea of doing something difficult is very exciting, right? I like that challenge, right? After finishing the PhD, and it's like, okay, what's next? Oh, let's do this bodybuilding prep thing, or is it something that's completely different but still challenging in its own ways? And I think that level of difficulty can be exciting, and I think that's an important thing for setting and accomplishing goals, right? You want it to be challenging to some degree, right? Where you have to go outside your comfort zone, where you have to learn to adapt, maybe face some of your weaknesses or things you're not so great at, and to get better and improve. So I think it ticks all those boxes of, okay, this is going to be a good goal, right? And now it's just very much in my face of, okay, now's the time. So I think, yeah, I'm excited about that, and I think it's, in terms of like how I've been approaching it and am approaching it, I think, again, it's one of those things where you think about ahead of time, and that's why, we always a year out, kind of going through the idea of making sure you're in the right position, doing the diet before the prep diet. So I think I've been, it was weird because I don't know exactly where I'm supposed to be, but I have some guidance. I have some idea of where I'm going to be. And now it's always, I think I'm in my head a lot, which is the case for many things, but it's like, okay, should I be a little bit leaner at this point? Should I go here? What's, how's it going to look? Because I think the biggest thing is so much uncertainty, because I've never been lean, period. Like, I've just always been a chunky boy, right? Growing up, it's just kind of been the thing. And then especially now in my like actual training career, I spent so much time on that higher end of the range of just really embracing the off season, not even just bodybuilding off season, just the off season of like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just eating and training hard and learning, right? Which I think is, one, very beneficial, but two, now it's,
yeah,
it's all going to be very new of approaching these things with this level of leanness that is going to be so foreign and also challenging, right? So I don't have that experience, right? Yeah, I hear people talk about it. I hear you talk about it, where you're like, getting out of the couch, man. That's the biggest goal. Just get off the couch, do
it's
stuff.
weird, man.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
think
it's weird.
I'm excited for all those things, right? Because it's gonna be fun in quotations, right? But it is gonna be fun.
Yeah,
And I think so I think just thinking about those things, having that toolbox and stuff in the basket ready to go when it need be, and then also just doing it is gonna be helpful, and then probably doing it poorly and learning from that and getting some feedback, repeating that process is gonna be good. So yeah, I think that's exciting. I think that's gonna be nice. The other thing is just thinking so much and going to start practicing a lot of the posing, right? Something we've talked about before, something I've seen in
yeah,
person a lot with, when it comes to the actually being on stage, and how important it is, how just, it is very much a skill. So it needs that practice, it needs that respect again, and that time given to it. So I'm excited for that, because it's something that I think is going to be beneficial for other goals that I have, which I'll talk a little bit later too, but briefly, just that confidence, right? Of one,
yes,
showing yourself on stage and being confident, like, yes, I worked for this. This is
yeah,
what I'm bringing, and I'm very proud of all the work that it took to get here. And I think the posing can reflect that, right? In a way. So I want to be able to show that too and be proud of that. So I think there's that. I think, yeah, just confidence in the body in general, right? Something that we've always struggled with, and something that is very real in the bodybuilding world. I think this can be an avenue for that. So I'm excited for that side of it too. So yeah, the training side of things, competing in bodybuilding, navigating all these new things, both with the dieting side of things, but also how that reflects in the training. I think it'll be cool because the training sometimes is the easier part. I love it. It's fun. I had some experiences of navigating training through periods of dieting. Again, not the level of leanness that I will be for the stage, but that is something that's going to be exciting to work around too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Nervous,
yeah.
of course, but
I'm
excited.
really excited for you. I think it's gonna be such a journey, dude, and like that's what it's all about, right? At the end of the day, and just seeing what you get out of it. I'm like, obviously seeing you on stage is gonna be awesome, but I think more importantly, more interesting to me is like, what do you get out of it emotionally, personally, all that kind of stuff. That's gonna be cool, dude. It's gonna be really, really cool.
And that's probably my biggest thing too. I'm super excited for that because it's the training arc, right? This is what we're about. It's about
Yeah,
those journeys, and this is a very big part of that journey. So
yeah,
yeah, and I'm excited to document it too, so that I can see it and I can force myself to reflect and be present and understand these things, and also just grow myself, but also hoping that others can see it too, right? Again, going online with the authenticity that we're trying to present is just,
Yeah.
let me talk about some of the stuff that is not fun,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And how I'm navigating it, or how I didn't navigate it so well, and how I would do differently in the future, right? Because I think if I could then bring others along on the journey and give some insight, some help, and just entertainment too, I think all those things will be fun and beneficial. Yes, it does pose its own stressor and difference and pressure because I'm documenting it, but I think outweighing the things, I'm more in line for doing so because of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. I love it. And like you said, it kind of ties into some of the other stuff that will other goals, right? So I think maybe the next kind of avenue would be like work stuff. I guess work/school stuff, because like school is so wrapped into work. I mean, you're pretty much done, right? I don't know if do you have any like extra paperwork or submissions or stuff like that you got to do, or are you
Not
done?
specifically for school. No, I just have to publish the last 2 papers, which is
Okay.
basically done, but the editing part is so much
Okay.
fun.
So yeah, right. But you still like that stuff is still so tied into work.
Yeah.
So I guess just to kind of lump that stuff together, um, the main goal for me in 2025 is that there is a very reasonable chance that I will graduate like this time 2025. I might need an extra semester. We'll see.
Yeah.
But it's on the table that I'll be done this time next year. So the goal being, not the goal isn't to graduate. Like graduating is, it's going to happen, right? Like whether it's December, the following April, or whatever. Like it's not, that outcome isn't the goal. To me, the goal is what happens after I graduate, and having something in place, having something set up, of just the next step, whatever that is. So one of the goals is figuring out exactly what that is, and I think I know what it is, but just doing a little, more soul searching, more just thinking all the different options, all the different everything. And right now I certainly am a bit, um, you know, uh, not super stoked about the idea of a full-time academic job, right? Like I don't think that's for me. I do think staying in academia to some degree is what I want to do. I just, exactly what that looks like, I'm not sure yet, right? Like what balance of kind of entrepreneur stuff versus academic, where in that spectrum am I, is that's the last thing to figure out.
It's the
Um,
Zorhelm spectrum.
yeah,
If you
exactly.
remember, that was the thing.
Exactly.
I know Zordos was gonna appreciate that one. That's what helped me navigate through all the stuff. And now it's like extended out to like Zorhelm and like Jeff Nippert spectrum, where it's even
Yeah.
more social
Yeah.
media. Or is it
For
kind
real.
of that?
Yeah. So that's one of the goals, is to kind of nail that down. But I think so integral to that is making sure that I have options. Like that's the thing, is keeping doors open. And so in order to keep any non-academic job doors open, need to try to continue to grow some of the entrepreneur stuff, right? Continue to grow social media stuff, continue to grow coaching, continue to get better at content creation and get better at communication, like all of those things. And and I'm being very intentional of not putting numbers to that.
Mhm.
Like there's not a goal of X number of followers. There's not a goal of, have my coaching prices be X, or to work with X number of clients. Like there's nothing like that, right? It's all about the goals are the process, right? Because then if you can't fail at that, right? Because then as long as you keep keep working forward, you keep taking those steps, then you're being successful. And then the outcome is just, it sort of is what it is, right? It's sort of out of your control to a degree, which I think is the reality. And you can do everything, make all the Instagram content you possibly want. Nothing is promised. You're not guaranteed to get a certain number of followers or a certain whatever just because you make X thing. So that's sort of an overarching theme that we'll have in this whole episode, I think, right? Is sort of process-oriented goals. And that's, I think, couldn't be more true in any avenue than it is in this one, of really focusing on those things. So it is being, I think I've done a very good job the last couple of years of being very consistent with, content creation stuff. And I think the next step for me on that is to as much as I don't want to do it, I've never done this, but as I think would be helpful, dig into analytics a little bit and start taking a bit more seriously what performs better than other things. Which, I never want to do something that I don't enjoy doing for that kind of thing. But I think within the spectrum of what I enjoy and what feels like it's in alignment with me and my values and who I am as a person, as long as it's within that framework, what things seem to do better than other things, I think that's very valid and something that I'm interested in looking into and doing. School stuff is it's sort of the goal with that is just to continue doing it, basically, right? Like the papers that we're working on, just make sure that we continue to get those things done, get those published, all that good stuff. Be able to talk about them on social media, which helps with the content and all that kind of thing. But that's basically it, right? With those, the goal basically just do the best work that I can do. I think that's maybe a good way to sum it up. And the motivation is strongly there for that, because I want that to be a potential option for when I graduate, that even if it's not full-time career type of money, that if it's at least something that I don't have to have a full-time academic thing right out of the gate, I can do sort of part-time in each or something like that. Or even if it is an academic job that's maybe not an R1 university where I'm constantly writing a million grants and I'm just buried in all that stuff, I have the space to be building, multiple things or what have you. So that's kind of the thing. And the final step, I think, for me with actually following through on that, because that's kind of wishy-washy goal-ish, right? So the final step is for me that I've not done this yet, but it's to sit down and start looking at those analytics on some social media stuff. It's to sit down and really break down, okay, this seems to do better than this thing. What can I do to do more of that? What can I do to make it a bit more time efficient to make those sorts of things, make it a bit more convenient, remove obstacles, that kind of stuff. Breaking down like the finer steps to set up those systems that are like, okay, well, this type of content seems to do the best. How can I do that really efficiently? Well, maybe it's setting aside the first half of every whatever day suits the schedule best. Maybe for me, it's Saturday or whatever, right? So maybe I set aside Saturday mornings and I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to batch record a bunch of whatever, or I'm going to make a bunch of infographics or whatever the thing is, to create the systems that as long as I follow the system, as long as I follow the process, it'll get me there, right? It's just creating the system that I trust will get me there. Like that's the next step. So I'm excited to do that. I mean, today, as we record this, it's New Year's Eve. And so that's kind of my goals for like today, tomorrow, as we turn the page on the new year, is to really make sure that I am digging into all that, get everything lined up how I want it to be, get all the plans in place, the systems, and then we can just go throughout the year and maximize the time in 2025 where we're actually moving forward in those things. So yeah, that's me working school stuff.
It's not fair because I just want to hit retweet, and because that's it's the same exact spot where I'm at. Because
cool.
I mean, that's kind of makes sense too. With
Yeah,
that's why we're doing this. We have very similar goals and approaches. So yeah, I think for me it's the same thing where I have finished the PhD now though, and it's just like I'm in that spot where like I'm in the position where I should be knowing what I'm doing, and I don't really still just yet, right? So if anything, again, you're ahead of the game, which is nice. But I do have direction because I am still doing the coaching stuff. I am still doing some writing for some companies, content creation. But now it's like full on starting the new year, starting this new chapter with that being the thing, right? Whereas last year it was finishing the PhD, which took up most of the year, and then doing the stuff on the side still. But now it's the same idea, kind of like I said before, where I don't have an excuse. And now I can fully go dive into this thing, which I'm extremely excited about because that's what I want to do, right? Along the lines as you had said, whereas I don't really want a full-on academia thing just yet. And I want to see if I can make this thing work because I just feel, again, it aligns more with my values where I'm able to have a bit more reach, have a bit more impact, have this one-on-one time with clients, right? And actually see and feel the changes being made, right? And help someone and have it be a little bit more tangible, right? So I think I really like that side of things. I like the community building aspect that we're aiming to do here, right? With the training arc and create a space where people can just come together and grow together, right? And have a space where they feel like they can feel comfortable, where they can meet other like-minded people. So I think that's something I want to really dive into, is just grow that community, right? Get some more people involved. And it's like you said, and we always talk about, not for our own like benefit. Like, yeah, we just want all the followers because that's cool. It's
I want money.
yeah,
I don't even care about people. I just want all the money.
Yeah. Just, here's my link for PayPal. Here you go. Just saying. But it's if we're getting more reach, we're going to be able to provide more value. We're going to be able to help more people. We're going to give, like, again, like we talked about episode 1, extend that hand to people that if they want to join us, that they can. And I think it's cool. And I want to be able to do that at a larger scale because it's fun. I think, again, thinking back on why we did this whole thing is, for me, if like when I was growing up, I've always wanted a place like this where like other nerdy dudes who like anime and video games and books and research and lifting weights can all just come together and chill and just like be there for each other. That's so cool, right? And we're doing that, and that's why it's so important to me to have that and to continue that and to grow it and to let other people know, right? And that's tough, especially when you're starting from scratch of building this business and this idea of thing, right? It's just, and it takes time, but I'm very excited for that because I know, I think, again, because we have that passion, that it's going to be something. It is already something, right? Like, again, like we always talk about, just me and you doing this is so cool. So I think, I'm very, very excited for that to be full on, to really grow the community, to provide more value. I think specifically there too, I feel getting into the content creation was very new to me this year, especially mainly towards the later end and even the later like third or quarter. So it's very new. So I think I'm still trying to figure out exactly what content looks like, right? Figuring out, like you had said, what works well, or not even works well, what I want to do, right? Because I like, we have the podcast stuff. I'm trying to figure out what science communication looks like exactly, because I think it's tough now to figure that out because it's like almost like a buzzword, or it's like science based. And then, but I don't want it to be that. I don't want to use that to like abuse that term. I want it to be, again, respect the science, respect the education side of things, and just try to figure out, again, how I could meet the middle of that, of myself, my values, of the science, of how I want to present myself on social media, all these things, right? I think these are all very new to me, so I'm still trying to navigate that. But importantly, I'm doing it. I'm out there putting stuff, whether it's not every single day or whatever. I'm still there, and I think I'm more excited to be more frequent, to be more purposeful, and to be just to be, right. I think I'm that's gonna be exciting. A little scary too, because it's like, okay, I'm gonna find out things that maybe I say I could be doing a lot better, or I made this post. What was I thinking? What was that? But that's okay too.
Yeah.
It's like, where it was like, man, I really want to make a post like this, but I also don't want to do it in this approach because I have to remember I'm representing X, Y, Z. So I think similarly, again, maybe be a little bit less in my own head about those things. I still, of course, like for me, that means, just don't overthink. But what I sometimes think it means is just like be a completely different person, but it's not. So I have to kind of get over that, where it's like, it's not like I'm gonna start calling out people and be like, are you stupid, really thinking that this is being the approach to this? Well, let me tell you here. Like, I'm not gonna play the algorithm. That's just not who I am, right? I think I need to understand it to some degree. I need to find out what, for me, understanding and playing the algorithm means, but it's never going to be outside of my wheelhouse, bubble, comfort zone, whatever it might be, right? So I think that's all still very new and something to look forward to addressing and getting better at and all that. So basically there's that. That's the how. This is kind of the why. I think also just, again, it's getting the reps in, I think, is going to be fun. I have like a rough posting schedule. It changed a little bit with all the travel stuff, and I do want to readjust that. But similarly, like you had said, today and tomorrow is the main idea for it. Like, I already got the date booked for the cafe that I'm going to go to with myself and have my journal out and have a nice matcha green tea. Oh man, it's going to be so cool. I'm excited. So like, it's funny because you're like, we're doing the podcast right now, though, talking about it, and it's okay. You don't have to have it all figured out on January 1st. Right? Like, you start the new year. Oh, you did schedule. Give it another 365 days. Then we'll wait till next year. 2025 was over. Peace.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be, right.
We need to remember time is a man-made construct.
Time is fake. Exactly, right? Man. Peace, and that's exactly it.
Just like your body, the industry, the algorithm, none of it knows that it's January 4th and not 1st. Right? It doesn't matter. Always a little bit better. A wizard is never late. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Yes.
Right? So
exactly.
I think that's a couple of points that I just wanted to sort of emphasize that you said that really rang true to me is one about the building the practice of making content and stuff like that, right? Like it's so it's tough because you have to, as you said, you have to kind of remain true to yourself, like within your integrity as a person. You never want to go outside of that to do things like that's, I feel pretty comfortable not making a moral judgment on other people, but like for me personally, I just never want to do that. That just doesn't feel good or worth it. Um, but I think, it can be hard to do that as you start doing things and it's not getting the kind of reach that you would like and, stuff like that. It gets really discouraging and you can start to feel, self-image stuff, or you feel shame, or you feel not good enough, and all those things. And that can be really difficult to navigate, right? So I'm glad. Hopefully, I think it's becoming more normal now that people are starting to go into that with their eyes a little bit more opened, as other people like us before us talked about that, right? Talk about just the, you know, trying to remove your self-image from how many likes you get on Instagram, which sounds so simple and so obvious, but it's so hard to do. Like it very, very much takes practice to get the hang of that kind of stuff. So I guess that's not even really for us thing. I think that's just for anyone listening who's trying to get into this sort of thing or whatever. That's normal, right? It's normal to have all the doubt and all the feel kind of embarrassed and shy to do it. And, some people have delusional confidence, which is great. Yeah, I wish I had a little bit more of that, but the confidence comes from experience, man. It really, really does. You just gotta keep going. That's the thing, and push through those early days when you're not really getting the reach, because eventually somebody's going to notice, right? If you do good work for long enough, it speaks for itself, and people are gonna notice. Which I think, actually, quick shout out, perfect example of that. Max Coleman, who started doing those cooking reels where he talks about science on it. Like the first couple he didn't get much traction at all, right? But they blow up. Like it's amazing, right? And he deserves every bit of it. But it's like that same thing. Just keep doing what feels good for you. Do good work, and people are going to notice. It's gonna work. And I think the second thing was where you talked about being able to reach more people through doing coaching and science communication and all that. I think that's like one of the cool things to me about this industry is, and especially the little niche of it that we've gotten into with PhD stuff, is that we can have some degree of, this feels really pretentious to say, but like influence at multiple levels, right? Like you can have the really, really strong, hopefully positive influence on like one person at a time with one-on-one coaching, which is beautiful and amazing. And then you have the wider scale, but a little bit less strong personal connection with people on like the science communication stuff where you're talking to the masses. And then you have even bigger scale, but again, less degree of influence with like research where you're contributing new knowledge to the field. And like, it's so cool to me that we can do all of those things. And that's part of why I don't want to completely abandon research, right? Do I want that to be my only thing? No, but I always want to be contributing. I always want to be, helping to design a study or write the papers or things like that. Even if I don't really want to do as much of the hands-on data collection stuff as much anymore after I graduate. But, I think it's just such a beautiful thing and such a unique part of this field that is so cool. And I love that you also, again, that's part of why we make a good team, is that you also appreciate those things. So,
yeah, no, I mean, if you need someone for data collections, that's just me, right? We fill each other. You do the writing, I do the data collection. That's good. This is that. And yeah, also again to reiterate, Max Coleman is fantastic. I was fortunate enough, he hit me up for coaching a while back, so I got to know him before he blew up. So hopefully he remembers us. I know he's also always just supportive for what we do too, and now we just look up to him. So yeah, he's phenomenal.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah. But yeah, it kind of makes it tough sometimes too. Like you said, we want all these doors open and want to dip our toes a little bit, but how do we find where like we kind of lie, right? But I think I like that. That's why I did a lot of the stuff that I've done, is I want to have those options, because then I can be fluid, right? Full on teaching and research, full on coaching if I want, somewhere in the middle, whatever it is. I understand what I like now, what I don't like as much, where I need some more guidance, where I can be more confident in myself, all these things, right? Where I think help me understand me and how I work and operate, and then that can just make me a better whatever I am wherever I go, right? So it's cool that we can, like I said, have that opportunity to do so.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, now let's talk about the fun stuff. I mean, we got
Thank goodness,
all
all
the
this
dry,
boring
boring.
stuff. Jeez.
All right, that sucked, dude.
I
Let's
know.
actually,
Now the episode starts.
yeah. Okay. So I think we both feel very strongly that they're training, nutrition, science, all this fitness stuff. It's amazing. It's a huge part of who we are. We love it dearly. We're passionate about it. But there are so many other aspects to life. And I think we would both feel very bad if all we did was this fitness stuff. As fun as it is, as much as we love it, it's great to talk about all the time, write about it, make videos about it, whatever. It's fun to have other stuff. We just there's humans are so complex and multifaceted, and it's so fulfilling. To get existential for a second, like no one knows what happens after this life ends. We might only have maybe we get reincarnated, maybe there's afterlife, maybe everyone has their own beliefs, but maybe this is all we get. And so I want to squeeze everything out of it that I can, right? I want to enjoy all these different things, and and I know you feel the same way. So let's get into some stuff with like non-fitness
Wait,
goals that
how
we
do you know
have.
I feel the same way? Is it all this anime artwork? Like, what are you talking about? Is it that obvious?
a little bit.
It's like you don't even have your PhD thing hung up on your wall. I'm like, nope, there's no room for that.
It's like behind one of the anime posters.
It's not even. It's just in a folder somewhere over there.
Nice. Priorities.
Yes.
So I think for me, this kind of falls into a couple categories, I guess, of there's sort of different tiers of hobbies for me personally. Like I think about things that I more so think about as other income streams or like other career stuff. I know myself, if I'm only doing one thing, I get burnout, right? It's not a boredom thing or whatever. It's so much of the same thing. I need some variety. And so, for me, what I sort of envision is that the predominant part of my career is the fitness stuff, but it's not all of it. If you have, whatever percentage of total work time, it's definitely not 100% fitness stuff. It's, that's most of it, but there's other things. To me, I talked about this on here before, is my desire to get into like writing fantasy books, right? I read a lot. You can't really see it on I have a huge bookshelf, right? This is like one of my main hobbies is reading. And so that desire is very much there. So like, that's one of my primary goals, is to have a more consistent habit of like literally working on writing, right? Working on the craft and getting a draft done and like being able to do that stuff. Cause there's so much, dude, the publishing industry is so interesting now that you don't have to go through a major publisher anymore. You can just do it on your own and you can make a great living. There's people that make 6-figure salaries just publishing their own books, like, and even with traditional publishing now, you have to market yourself anyway. So that's a whole different discussion. But it's something that is a major creative outlet that I crave, and I also just think is really fun. So like that's a major one. And then the one that kind of came out of nowhere that I didn't expect, I started this YouTube channel a few months ago to just talk about books and anime and D&D, whatever nerdy stuff. It's called Nerd Level Rising. Go subscribe, like and subscribe,
Do it.
comment. No, but I literally started the day after my birthday. So that would have been August 17th was when the first video went up. And I was like, okay, well, let me just kind of have some fun. And here, I'll have 20 subscribers by the end of the year, because like it takes forever, right? It's this very slow grind. And it has gone so much better than I could have ever wished for or anticipated. I mean, it's I had almost 2,000 subs this morning, I think.
So that's so
I saw,
cool.
which 4 months, like it's crazy, right? So like that's already monetized through YouTube, which is really cool. It's not very much money at all, right? But if that continues to build, will that ever be full-time job money? I don't want it to be, right? I don't want to be a YouTuber full-time. That doesn't sound fun to me. But I do want it to be like this purely fun little side hustle thing, where more importantly, I get to talk about this thing I'm passionate about, have fun. I've made, like, there's literally people that I just text with all the time. Like we are genuinely friends. Like, it's so cool. So continuing to build that is definitely a big thing. So those are kind of like one type of hobby of stuff that I'm trying to have be a contributory part of my income as time goes on. And then the other thing is just stuff that's purely just for fun and enjoyment, right? And that's stuff like setting the goal with the hobby is to set aside some time to do it, right? That's the goal, because it's so hard for me to not fill all this time with working. It's just, that's by natural inclination. And then, between that and time with my girlfriend, it's like that's where the time goes. And so now, coincidentally, she's getting back into school. She's going for a career change, which means she's going to be gone more, which means I have some more time to do stuff. Which means, some of that can go into work stuff.
We gaming.
Some of it can go into other stuff, right? So, like we talked about before we started recording, I bought Elden Ring finally. I'm years late to the party, but I'm finally trying to make some time for it. So that's the other goal with some of these things, like getting back into video games, reading, like I mentioned, right? Watching anime stuff. Obviously, that stuff will never go away. But those, part of me wants to get into cooking. Maybe that was prep. I don't know. It's like the starvation experiment where they all became chefs after. But there's just other fun things that I would love to just either continue making time for, like reading anime, D&D, that kind of thing, or make time for like getting back into gaming. That is important to me, because it's important to do stuff that's not productive, right? That's such an easy trap for people who are trying to do the entrepreneurial thing or whatever. Like, how do I make this productive? How do I monetize this? How do I, like, some stuff should just be fun, just for the sake of it being fun. So that's the thing, right? And I want that stuff to be supplemental income for some of those things, which again helps allow me to not by necessity be a full-time academic, which would be, very nice, obviously. Or it's just the pure mental health boost of like, I'm doing this thing that's only fun and I'm not stressed about it and all that kind of stuff. So yet again, part of my to-do list here is to sit down and do like a very thorough audit of my schedule and how I spend my time, and see where can I carve out that time, because that's kind of tricky. There's a lot going on. So it's not quite as easy as just saying like, well, instead of watching TV, let me just play this game. Like, I don't just sit around and watch TV. So it to me, it comes back more towards where can I become more efficient at some of these work tasks. Like, that's the thing, is figuring that out, because then that's where the time is going to come from. If I can spend, 2 hours instead of 2.5 hours doing whatever thing, then all of a sudden there's 30 minutes I can shift over here, or, and that can add up quite a bit. You get 10 minutes, 15 minutes here and there from several things that certainly can add up. And also, I said this before we started recording too, like being okay with a hobby not being a daily thing. Like that's okay. That's fine. And maybe that's just me being weird. Like I always think about, like, there's just not time in the day. Okay, there's time in a week. There's time in the 2 weeks. Like you can find, maybe you play for an hour or two every couple weeks or something, right? Like you still get to do the thing. You still get to have fun. It's better than nothing. So anyway, there's sort of my my hobbies rundown. There's not nearly enough time to do everything all the time, but if we let things kind of shift around and that kind of thing, I think we can make it work. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and on that last point too, like it's the same as training. You don't train every day, right? It's the weekly programming and then your monthly and yearly periodization. That looks different for anime and video games. Sometimes you're more anime focused, sometimes you're more video game focused. I'm the same way, where I go through those blocks of, all right, there's a lot of anime coming out this season, so I'm going to focus more on that, and I'll play a little bit less video games, or vice versa, whatever it might be. And that's okay too, right? Like you said, it doesn't have to be every single day, and it just, whenever you sit down to do it, you just appreciate it either way, regardless of the frequency or the duration or the intensity or all these things. You're doing it. So that's
and my dumbass decides to start with Elden Ring, which is like the most time intensive.
Just dive in the deep end. It's okay. It'll be you'll learn from that either way. It'll be fun. So it's I struggled too, because there's so many cool things I want to do. Like you said, we just have so many hobbies and stuff that we enjoy. So I think I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like, and then like where I want to derive my time, put my time, and then where do I want to draw the line of hobby versus trying to make it monetary, right? Because like I think that's because I don't want it to come to a thing where I start doing streaming or making videos on video games, and I miss out on like actually just enjoying playing video games, right?
Yeah.
And not say that always happens, but I think that can be a thing. So I just need to sit down
That
and get,
has happened to me in the
yeah,
past.
yeah.
Just like as a very, very quick
Mm.
tangent example, like my whole life drawing was my thing growing up, right? All the time. A teenager, I wanted to be a tattooer, and then I was drawing, I was painting. That was all I did in my free time, and like I wasn't like the best in the world, but I was pretty good, right? Just as humbly as I can say that, I was pretty good. I could have had an artistic career, and the second I tried to make money at it, all the fun was gone, and like I don't draw at all anymore. That's why like my creative outlets are now programming or making an infographic or a video, or now with writing, trying to get into books and stuff. Like it's weird. It can definitely happen where it takes the fun out of it. So okay, continue.
Yeah, no, very good point. I'm glad you brought it up, and it's like you had that experience because yeah, it can be a thing, and it's tough. And I want to again still give respect to those things and myself to know that okay, not everything has to be for money. Stuff still needs to be there to enjoy. That's very
Yeah.
important too. And it's okay also to want to make some kind of connection or bridge between them, right? Like we're doing with the training app, we're trying to connect stuff with training and people who like anime and video games, but to what degree and to what level and how often, whatever those is, I still don't know just yet. And then even on my own stuff too, is just trying to figure it out. But like same thing, I just want to be more creative, right? Because there's a lot of consumption going on, right? From
Yeah.
not only food, there's a lot of food. But and it's just this the anime, the manga, all these things, and I still very much love that. But I'm itching for some more creativity, which is where the content does come in. But also want more creativity in a freedom sense way, right? Again, so I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's pixel art, maybe it's making video games. Like that's stuff that comes to mind
Yeah.
because like I like that idea. But same thing, that's it's still super new. So it's something I'm going to explore more, right? And try to figure it out and see what it means. I also like cooking and baking a lot too. But same thing, like
Yeah.
also super important. I forgot, I didn't want to interrupt you and said this, but your YouTube channel, Jake and Bake, you just make all this baking stuff and you go through it. Like I already subscribed. I already made the YouTube channel for you while you were talking about it, by the way.
That's
So
actually a really good
right,
idea.
that'd be so cool.
That's also, again, just very quick aside. This is I'm not the biggest Gary Vee fan. I think he's kind of hit and miss with me with what feels like that makes sense, and some stuff I'm like, come on, dude. But I remember one thing that he said a long time ago. He was like, you can be horrible at something. Start a YouTube channel, and the whole point of the channel, watch me slowly learn how to get better at this thing.
Yeah.
And then people are invested in your journey, and they're cheering you on, and they're learning alongside you. And like, I've always thought that's a cool idea. So maybe do that.
Dude, because that's how I'm thinking about it for like pixel art stuff. I'm not artistic at all. I don't think so. I just draw stuff in my notebook that looks like terrible. It's little things that come to mind, like a drawing, like, oh, like it's Christmas, so let me draw a little present or a tree. And people are like, what is that? Is that a donkey? So like, but the same thing, that'd be cool. Like, let me be a complete new student to this thing, and let me show you how I navigate it, and then how me specifically I navigate it with all these other experiences of being a student, being and how I like relate all these things, right? So I think that can be very much a thing. So yeah, it's something else that I've been thinking of too, but don't know just yet. And I think again, that's kind of a theme that we've been saying a couple of times. Like we don't really know, but we're figuring it out, right? And I think that's also okay. But we're thinking about it. We're talking about it. We're going to be writing about it in our notebooks. We're going to talk with other people about it, right? All these things where it's coming to the forefront a bit more and it's coming more real. And I think that's important, right? Again, you don't have to have it all figured out, but you got to do something, right? You can't just be like, it'll come to me one of these days. Right? It's kind of putting yourself there. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about with the whole video game connection stuff, right? Like I would love to, and I'm thinking about just, reaching out to people who are on Twitch and do streams. Like, yo, bring me on the channel. Let's just talk about lifting weights.
Yeah.
And then from there, it'd be like, okay, like, then I could figure out what that looks like. But that's like the first step to getting into that connection and to try to figure out that side. So maybe I do some streaming, maybe I do whatever it is, right? So there's options, and we're thinking about it. So I think that's cool. But yeah, video games, I just really like playing them. They're just so much fun. I love going through the story. I love that same thing, that journey, that escapism in a way too, right? Just to really like, dive into this other world and it's appreciate the medium, right? Especially lately, I've been just really loving like indie games, independent games. So people who are like 1 to 3 people made this game. Not like bigger corporations, but they put their absolute heart and soul into it, and you can feel that and really just embrace that when you're playing the game. And I love that, right? And I love supporting those people and then being in that little indie community where it's like, yeah, you're just so passionate about this, and I love the passion. I just want to be around you. That's cool. Right? So I think that's been really fun to dive into that. So I have a huge backlog now of games I need to go back and play, and I
Yeah.
have that. But I have it all in my Excel. I have like a a rating of like really want to play this one. Can wait to play
Nice.
this one. So it has that approach, and I did a really good job of playing quite a bit of games this past year, which is nice. And I think it's fun to sit down and finish a game. Right, a lot of times people think
Yeah.
gaming nowadays is just online stuff and it's continual and forever, and that's can be part of it, but sitting down and playing an actual like story game or like a single player game and going through that it's different. And it's so if you're not
Yeah.
doing both, it's nice to dip into both, because
Yeah.
I still
Those
have my
stories.
like I play RuneScape for the past 20 years, but that's cool
Yeah.
to always have that and to dive into and
Yeah.
hit up Drain Our Village and talk shit at Willow's people, so that's cool.
Those were always my favorite kind of games anyway. Like the story, like I played RuneScape forever, right?
Yeah.
I've been on a hiatus for the last couple of years, but like you're making me want to get back into it. But or like I got Elden Ring, or I got like these things that are seemingly endless, right? Or uh, other things that you can just keep playing forever. But my favorites have always been like the God of War, the Assassin's Creed, the stuff like that, where there is a story, there is a beginning and ending, and you get that payoff. That's like one of my favorite things about books, right? Like you start it, and that you're promised a certain kind of story, and you follow the progress along the way, and then there's that payoff at the end, and it's just like this catharsis and this it's not always a great feeling. Sometimes it's a tragic ending or whatever, but it's always satisfying regardless. So games like that are always awesome.
Yeah, it's that idea again of completing something. And that's very rewarding and very fun. It gives you time to then reflect on the journey even more so, appreciate the journey even more so. And that's what the training arc is. We're going through the bodybuilding prep. We finish it. We appreciate it. We look forward to the next thing, or that. And it holds like a piece in our heart. Like there's so many games that are integral to just how I approach things and how I navigate life. Because it's like I've learned lessons from them, from video games. Like that's cool. I like that. It really made an impact, right? So I think that's cool. And it's gonna same thing for anime, right? Just excited to continue to dive into more stuff. There's been a lot of good things coming out, and there's a lot of older stuff that I'm going back. So I always like have one older thing that I'm going through and one newer stuff that I'm watching, and I just kind of back and forth there. So and same thing with trying to read manga, because this past year is when I actually started trying to read manga, which has been very enjoyable too, because I like reading, but through the PhD, you're like, I read so much, like, I don't want to do any other type of reading. So it was harder for me to do that. And then that's when I spent more time in a block of video game periodization focused, right? Where I'm just, okay, it's video games, because there's that. I'm peaking towards my video game Super Smash Brothers competition coming up. So I need to increase my specificity.
Exactly.
So it went to that, but being able to dive into manga is nice. And for me, manga and anime, I love how it can line up with certain parts of my life, and then I reflect on that show or whatever, and it reminds me of that part of life. Like Naruto, for me, I started like a couple weeks before I started my PhD, finished it like in the middle towards the end of the PhD. So for me, like Naruto's the PhD anime.
That's cool.
So it's like I remember like having certain episodes very, very remembrant of like, okay, I was cat sitting at Eric's place and I watched the episode of the Pain arc that was like integral to me, and I was sitting on the couch crying. I'm like, damn, this is life. Things like that. Or Ranking of Kings was when I started watching at the last week of New Zealand, going back home and going to the anime convention afterwards. So it's like these things where I can then resonate with. So I'm excited for that. And then this year, I have it right there. I've been waiting, and I'm starting tomorrow on January 1st. I'm starting to read Berserk.
Let's go.
Yeah, and because everyone talks about it. Yeah, it's back there. It's something I've always wanted to do, but same thing, was just maybe waiting for the right moment, or waiting for it to feel like it's the right moment and appreciate it properly. So I got the big deluxe volume, so I'm really going to be able to appreciate the art and dive into it. So, and then that tying in with my bodybuilding prep is like, that's going to be an arc and a half. Like, that's cool.
It's perfect.
Yeah, exactly, right? So like that's going to be special to me, or at least I'm planning it to be, and I'm excited for that. So
I'm so excited for you, man. Berserk, if anyone listening is not aware, Berserk is one of my favorite stories, regardless of medium, regardless of anything. It is just one of my favorite things. It's so much. I could talk about it forever. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, this is gonna be cool. But yeah, like that's pretty much it. And then same thing like with the cooking, and I find sometimes struggling to the quote unquote balance of like cooking with dieting / prepping. So I'm gonna eat right, because I love baking, especially. So it's like I can't really bake that much during the off season or in the in season. So maybe if I do bake, I'm baking for others. But then like at what point do I get to the spot where it's like, okay, I'm licking the spoon way too many times now, right? And then how much is that affecting me? So then just trying to find a new approach and love for navigating cooking through dieting. So that's something maybe I could document too, right? Where it's like, hey, some more meal friendly, calorie friendly meals, which is, but also not making it be so in your face, like, we're making protein sludge and look how it's just better than ice cream, man. Because I also don't want to do that. It's a
Yeah,
lie.
because we all know it's not better
It's a
than ice
lie.
cream.
It's
Like,
such a
come on,
lie.
let's
It's
stop
just,
lying to ourselves.
yeah, that's where,
It's the same, like, the creamy is amazing. It's not better than real ice cream.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
come on.
So I don't want to be that guy either. So that's where the values clash. So I have to figure out what that looks like. It's like, hey, listen, this is an orange chicken substitute recipe, but there ain't no way it's better than the actual thing. But it's getting me through this prep because it
Exactly.
scratches the itch and it fits the macros. So we're good.
Yeah.
But
And that's another, that kind of scratches the creativity itch too,
yeah,
right? Of creating a new version of this thing that aligns with your current goals. And, yeah, it's awesome.
that's fun.
That'd be cool.
So yeah, that's the
Um,
hobbies. There's probably a lot more that I want to get into, but I won't. Because
that's
I have to, one thing at a time, one hobby at a time.
one at a time. And that's kind of the fun part of it too, right? Is it shifts over time. And be like me. You play a bunch of video games in high school, and then you take 10 years away and decide to get back into it right when you're at the towards the end of your PhD, when you're at the most busy. You're like, yeah, let me get back into games.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting into personal goal, right? For me, this is going to be surprising to nobody who has listened to the podcast before, that I talked about the best lesson I got from contest prep was the understanding, the realization, the really driving the lesson home of how important it is to really be present and to really be able to slow down, be engaged in what's happening in the moment. And that specifically for me, applying that to my romantic relationship, right? That for me, I don't think I handled that poorly at all during the prep. Could it have been a little bit better? Yeah, I think so. But overall, I would give myself a nice high grade for that. But this lesson that I learned, I want to apply to that relationship and really lean into that. Like, that's one of my primary goals for the year, is to have that relationship be just continue to get better and better. I think right now it's the best it's ever been. It's a long-term relationship. We've been together for over 4 years now, which is crazy to think about. And so any long-term relationship is going to have some ups and downs, right? That's very normal. But I think now is the best it's ever been, and I want to keep it going in that trajectory, right? And I think so much of that is me, where I need to do a better job of being more present and more engaged in some things, and setting aside the work stuff, not having that be running in the background while we're out doing something or whatever. So that's my biggest goal, is really, really leaning into that, really doing the best possible job that I can at just being the best partner that I can be, right? And as almost ashamed as I am to say it, to have learned this lesson here now at this point in I'm 31, right? Like, I wish I would have learned this 10 years ago, but nonetheless, here we are. That at the end of the day, that those relationships with people are the most important thing. Work stuff is cool, but eventually in our life, we're not going to think back on, like, dude, I did so-and-so's podcast, or I did this for my career. Like, you're going to think about your relationships and your memories and all that stuff with other people. And so I really want to lean into that and apply all the lessons that I have learned this past, well, not just this past year, the past several years, into doing that, because that is ultimately what matters the most. And I think how to do that is, honestly, it's just kind of continuing what I'm already doing. I've been trying to take steps towards that already, just because it is such a high priority. And I think some of that is, and I've been transparent about this before, continuing to see a therapist who has been very helpful, towards me with those things. Continuing to, just have that as a resource is super, super helpful. And continuing to do things. This sounds silly, but like, I have a reminder in my phone that goes off every day. That's like just a reminder of this stuff. That's really helpful, just to spam my brain with that reminder. Is it just helps me not get so distracted by work stuff that I just don't think about it that much, which sounds really bad, but like that does happen to me sometimes. So I think it's really just continuing what I'm doing, but really making sure that is honestly the highest priority, of this year, beyond any of the other stuff that we've talked about, beyond even lifting, beyond even video games, whatever.
That's when you know, though. That's important. Is you're putting it above those things. Like
A girl, of all things.
that's I was gonna say my goal is to get a max cape in
Uh,
RuneScape, but now I don't know if I can say that after you just saying that. So.
uh, but yeah, I mean that's my goal, man. It's really simple. It's really straightforward. I mean, it's not simple. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? And that's the thing, you know. And I think that even if all these other goals don't go according to plan for this year, if that one does, I'll be happy, right? Like that's the main thing. Of course, I want all the goals to go great, but you know, sometimes things change over time. You got to call audibles, whatever. But like that's the one that I don't want to compromise on, because I have compromised on that in the past, if I'm being honest, and it doesn't feel good for anybody. So trying to put all that behind me, learn from all of it, just be better, and keep moving forward, and that's all you can do, right? So
Yeah, that's a really great goal, and I think you have a very good mindset and approach about it, and you have systems in place, and you have everything, and it's going to go really well. So I'm excited to see that unfold too, and that's really nice.
yeah.
So I guess not the Maxscape one. I guess I'll talk about the other one. Uh, it's slightly annoying because this is one that I almost have every year, and everyone always has those, right? And this is something I have probably my whole life, but I think this year means a lot. It means different, and it feels different. But I basically really want to work on getting more confidence,
Yeah.
and it's something I've always struggled with. There's times I've done okay with it. I've done pretty well with it, but honestly, after like during and slightly after the PhD, I feel like it took a big hit just because I was navigating all this new foreign stuff of like just extreme just uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
imposter syndrome to the max, all these
Yeah.
things where it's like, damn, like did I deserve the PhD, or like I didn't come out the way I wanted to, or I didn't like how this happened, whatever it was, right? I just a lot of things that just really felt like a punch to the gut and to the
Mm-hmm.
confidence, and I didn't like that. I hated that, and I found myself it just bleeding into other things too, of like how I talk to people, how I'm talking on the podcast, how like I didn't like it, and it's something I really want to nail in, and I think it's this upcoming year with having a lot more direction, right? And having that big turnaround, like I talked to in the last episode, of just all these things where I'm getting that direction, I'm getting that strength, I'm getting just that more confidence, right? But now it just needs to come into place more and needs to be repetitive, or needs to come with repetition and more, time. So I think that's something I very much am looking forward to. And I think it's going to be like that thing where it's never really feels like it's happening, right? Because you're always be like fluid and like, oh, I don't feel confident about this one, but I
Yeah.
want to be extremely intentional about it being at the forefront. And the same thing of it, be okay, like we'll work on this. I'm being my true self, and like and it's weird because confidence in my mind is not. I think I do a good job of not caring what other people think. It's very much just like I'm my worst enemy, man. I really am.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think the
Totally.
how about it is just really getting over that, and that's why like when you did like the getting to know the training arc, like my favorite book I put is a book I read recently, was just The Mountain Is You, and it talks about that self sabotage, and it helped so much. And I'm planning to reread it again because I'm like there were times where things just really resonated with me, and I was able to take that into the day and then into the week, and maybe I need to revisit that now. So I think that's some action I'm already looking forward to taking on that. But just just going back to that mental space of just not letting it consume me, myself
Yeah.
consume me, right? And I think
Yeah.
it's going to come through again putting myself in these scary and difficult situations, like a bodybuilding prep, like the content creation and the podcasting, all these things, right? And it's can be scary, but it's also exciting. So I think that's kind of the approach, is just gain some more confidence, whatever that may look like. And I feel like the plan of attack looks pretty decent so far, and I'm feeling good about it, which is rare for me to say, especially in regard to this topic. So
Yeah.
we're getting it. Berserk's gonna help too. I feel like that's gonna be cool,
Yeah.
and learning
Yeah.
through that and all. So yeah,
That's
that's the
awesome,
personal
dude.
one.
I love that. I relate to that a lot. Um, it's a constant journey. Like you said, there's ups and downs for sure. I'm glad that you said that too about the PhD. Just because, you know, I think a lot of people would see that you completed that, and it's like, man, how could you not feel unstoppable after you finish that thing? And I think it's, you know, I'm not there yet, right? But it sounds like it's another one of those, just a contest prep, just like anything, where like there's stuff you don't know about it unless you actually do it yourself. And I don't mean that in like a gatekeepy way or whatever. It's just sort of the realities. You know, there's just stuff you have to experience that, you know, not everything is always as it seems on the very surface level. There's more story there. You know, it's like an iceberg sometimes, right? There's just a lot more underwater you can't see. You know, so I think that's really valuable for people to hear, probably, of just like, yeah, you can accomplish this amazing thing and it's awesome and you can be really proud of it, but there might be some stuff that still kind of cut you a little bit on the way, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
interesting.
I was going to ask this question to you afterwards, but I'll get into the answer from me because it kind of bleeds right into this. So the question was basically like, is there any like mantra, quote, thing that you're like going to reflect on? It could be a picture, it could be whatever it is that's going to help you through this year of reminding you about these goals and getting through that. And if things aren't go well, like what's going to be that little reminder, right? So for me, there's like two or
Yeah.
three kind of quotey / saying things that I'm going to repeat to myself for
Yeah.
that.
I
Yeah.
have two. I have two. One is so one of my favorite book series is called Sun Eater, and it's the first book is very, 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 very heavily inspired by Dune, and anyone who knows Dune has heard "Fear is the mind killer." Like that's a very classic line from the story. But the guy who wrote Sun Eater took that and changed it a little bit, and then he did a bunch of other stuff kind of similarly, where he changed it and said fear is a poison. And then he also had some other sayings. He has things like grief is deep water, rage is blindness, like all of these, hope is a cloud. Like there's a lot of things, just little short, sweet sayings like that. That fear is a poison sticks with me so much because like, what better describes what fear does than poison? You know. So to me, like that's a reminder, sort of like you're saying, confidence about like I'm anxious about this thing, I'm scared about this thing. That you know, it's not even really that helpful, but just thinking about that saying makes me be like, no, like this is, I can recognize what I'm doing. I'm just scared. It's okay. I can, you know. And I think the second thing, especially that then gets stacked on that one, which is really nice. I am a massive fan of Haikyuu, and I always think to the top, right? Like that's such a huge. I did that in prep a handful of times when I really needed a boost, and dude, it feels like you go Super Saiyan when I did that. It was just like, oh, like yes, I can do this cardio right now. I just think about Hinata just like doing his thing, right? Doing what Hinata does, and that was always a big one that I think that'll stick with me for sure. So those are the two. One is just the reminder of how crippling fear can be and how it infiltrates every other aspect of what you're doing, and then just the pure motivation, positive, let's do this kind of thing.
And yeah, like you said, it's so simple. It's 3 words sometimes, but it's that's how
Yeah.
it should be because then it's repetitive. It can be enough to turn switches on and off and put you in the right direction. When, like you said, you're feeling something. All right, nope, switch it. This is what I'm thinking about. Like fear is
Yeah.
poison, man. Like oh, boom, man, it almost just like saves you in a way, right? Or it can be so
Yeah.
powerful. So I think that's why I was curious to ask because I think it can be useful, and that's exactly what I was thinking along the lines of that. And
Yeah.
one that came up that I was thinking about when we were talking about the idea of like the PhD where you think like you'll be invincible in the end. I thought the same thing too. So then when I didn't feel that, I thought that something was wrong. Right.
Yeah.
And there's this one mindset approach of the saying that really stuck with me. And I'm going to try to repeat myself a lot as I go through it. It's the idea of not having, I might butcher this, so give me a second, not having the mindset of have, do, be, but rather be, do, have. So not
Mm.
once I have this PhD, I can do the things I want to do and be the person I want to be. Reverse that. It starts
Yeah.
with be the person that you want to be, right? Do the things that the person you want to be would do so that
Yes.
you can do it and then have the stuff you want to in the end, right?
Yeah. I
So it's like
love that.
that shift where it's like, it's not
Yeah.
about these accolades. It's not about how many letters you have next to your name or how many
Yeah.
follows, publications, XYZ. It's just, the person that you are. Right. So
Yeah.
don't let everything else cloud you or get in the way of that. So it's like that be, do, have. And I think that's so just repeating that's going to be helpful for me. And
Yeah.
I think I like that one a lot.
I love it.
And then a similar one that's on the idea of just gaining that confidence and not overthinking. Mainly, not overthinking part is win the hour. Right. So
Yeah.
I've always heard of like win the day, like focus on that. But for me, I needed to break it down even more. I just focus on the hour ahead.
Yeah.
Right. Just win the hour. If you can't actually take action on whatever it is that you are thinking about, then it does not deserve to be in that headspace at this time. Address it when you can, right? Like, can you actually change something right now in the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is? Or is it something you have to get ready to do for in the next hour? Like, do you have a recording or a call with a client? If not, whoop, throw it out. Not in my headspace right now. Can't do anything about it. So,
Yeah.
And that's even more so things that are in the past are way in the future. Like, that's now we're focusing on being present right now and action. So I think that's going to help with that overthinking side of things. And lastly, I ended on the podcast last time with this, but just the cards are yours, right? The Marlon Craft quote from the hip hop song that I love so much it really is. And that's new and that's exciting. So like, just got to play that hand and make it happen. So I'm excited for that too. So yeah, those like 3 main ones, but very short, sweet. Like you said, it's powerful. I think that's the thing. So it can be helpful to have those if people are listening and don't have that already. And it could be anything. It could be a picture. Like I have tons of pictures up on my wall that remind me of stuff. There'll be things that come up throughout the year that again I can attach to different things. But it's sometimes having that always be a reminder. If it's your screen lock on your phone, right? All these things can really help, as small as they are, but like those small things add up, as we always talk about in the bodybuilding realm, right?
Yeah, right. My screensaver on my phone is Guts, right, from Berserk.
Yeah,
he's the struggler. He never gives up. He just keeps moving forward.
Yeah,
no matter how horrifyingly traumatic it is.
You're scaring me. I don't know if I want to read it anymore.
It's crazy. You've heard the trigger warnings, I hope, right? Like it's.
I just avoid them. They can't be that bad, right? Yeah. What am I getting into?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. But I think maybe to wrap us up here, I think the through line through this about think about what's important to you, what's with your values. Think about those things a lot. Be within your integrity as a person. Embrace being the type of person you want to be. Let that lead, like you said, to having the things and being able to do the things that you eventually want. You'll have noticed that a lot of our goals here are process-oriented goals, right? They're not about the outcome specifically. It's about doing the steps to get to an outcome that sounds nice, but focusing on that process like everything else, because the outcome is not promised regardless. But if you just do the process, you at least give yourself the best possible chance. And then finding the thing that motivates you individually, which might be different for different people. Like for me, phone reminders, being able, like if I do these things, then I get to go do this thing. That kind of thing can work for me sometimes. Some people use that reward system really well. Some people use the reminder system really well. Some people need like a punishment system. If I don't do this, then I can't do that, right? You got to find what works, which takes some experimentation, takes a little bit of time. But as Brandon Sanderson says, you got to figure out how to get yourself to do the things that your future self will thank you for having done. And that's the secret to success at the end of the day, is following the process. So here we go.
It really is. And that's such a great way to wrap it up. The only thing I'll add too is just be kind to yourself, right? Along the journey.
Yes.
Habit change is tough. It's just not going to be quick. It's going to take time. You're going to struggle. You're going to find it's tough at times, and it's going to be worth it though, right? So just be kind to yourself, and just enjoy the process along the way, because that's what it's all about. So you got this. We believe in you.
Yeah, for sure. That's Lane Norton said that a very long time ago. Success is a battle of attrition.
Yeah.
I think he meant it in like a business sense and a bodybuilding sense, but like it applies to every goal, right? Like you're gonna fail, you're gonna fall down, you're gonna stumble, you're gonna fall off track. You just gotta keep getting back up, right? And that's literally the only thing. That's all you can do, right? Is, it's not all in your control. You just gotta keep trying, and maybe you change the plan a handful of times and whatever, but eventually you'll get there. So yeah, man.
Awesome. Yeah, as always, thank you all for listening. We really appreciate you being here. And 2024 is up in a close, and we're so it's just awesome that we're doing this thing. And I'm just extremely excited for 2025. Like we talked about, our values kind of line up, and we're training arc's gonna be big, man. It's gonna grow. So I'm looking forward to it. And we hope that 2025 is nothing but amazing for you all, and better than you can even imagine. So we'll catch you in the new year. And then until then, see you next year. I had to say. Okay, quick. How do you end this? Quick.